My restaurant co-owner told me, opportunity doesn't wait for personal problems. When I questioned how he had sold our $450,000 property without my knowledge or consent while I was caring for my dying mother. My name is Harrison Webb, 53 years old, restaurateur with 17 years of experience managing our family dining establishment, Milano's Restaurant. I had co-founded our business through careful location development and detailed partnership agreements that protected both partners' interests in property decisions and operational management. When Kevin Murphy explained that the current real estate market required immediate action during my 3-month absence, I simply said, I understand market pressures can create difficult timing decisions. What Murphy didn't realize was that my systematic approach to partnership documentation included comprehensive records of property investments, signature authorization requirements, and legal safeguards that would expose his fraudulent sale transaction and partnership agreement violations. The confrontation took place in our restaurant office on a Tuesday morning, 2 weeks after I had returned from Phoenix, where my mother, Dorothy Webb, had passed away after a prolonged battle with pancreatic cancer. I had been reviewing quarterly financial statements when I discovered the property sale documentation that had been completed during my absence. Harrison, your mother's medical situation was tragic, but business opportunities don't pause for personal circumstances, Murphy explained while reviewing the sale contracts. The buyer offered $450,000 cash with a 30-day closing timeline that couldn't accommodate extended family emergencies. I maintained professional composure while noting the defensive tone in Murphy's explanation and the suspicious timing of a major property transaction during my documented family crisis. Kevin, our partnership agreement requires both signatures for any property transaction exceeding $50,000, I observed while examining the sale documentation. How was this transaction completed without my written authorization? Murphy gathered the paperwork with visible irritation. Harrison, I had power of attorney authorization to act on your behalf during your extended absence. The legal documentation was properly executed according to partnership protocols. The response contradicted our partnership agreement, which had never included power of attorney provisions and explicitly required both partners' direct involvement in property sale decisions. I see. Can you show me the power of attorney documentation that authorized this transaction? Murphy paused his file review and looked up with growing frustration. Harrison, you've been focused on family medical issues while I've been managing critical business decisions. The legal details were handled through our attorney to ensure proper documentation. I thanked Murphy for managing business operations during my family emergency and returned to my office to begin systematic review of the property sale transaction and partnership agreement compliance. The comprehensive documentation I had maintained throughout our 17-year partnership included detailed records of every major business decision, property investment, and legal agreement that governed our restaurant operations. What I discovered during the first hour of analysis was sufficient evidence to contact my business litigation attorney, Patricia Thornton, for immediate consultation about property rights violations and partnership fraud. The sale documents contained signature authentication that appeared to be forgeries of my authorization, created during the period when I was documented as providing full-time care for my terminally ill mother. Patricia, I need urgent consultation about unauthorized property sale by my business partner, I explained during our confidential phone call. The documentation shows forged signature authorization and systematic violation of our partnership agreement. Patricia had handled restaurant business disputes throughout her 15-year career and immediately recognized the seriousness of unauthorized property transactions involving partnership assets. Harrison, if Murphy completed a property sale without your consent using forged documentation, you're looking at contract fraud, forgery, and breach of fiduciary duty, she explained. The evidence I was compiling showed not just partnership agreement violations, but systematic property theft through fraudulent documentation while I was dealing with family medical emergency. Murphy had apparently been monitoring real estate market conditions and identified the property sale opportunity during my mother's final weeks, when he knew I would be unavailable to provide oversight or signature authorization. Murphy's timing suggests deliberate exploitation of my family medical crisis to execute unauthorized property transaction, I documented. His systematic planning indicates premeditated property theft rather than spontaneous business opportunity. The partnership agreement we had established included specific safeguards against unilateral property decisions, requiring written consent from both partners for any real estate transaction regardless of market conditions or timing pressures. Our partnership contract explicitly prohibits either partner from executing property sales without documented consent from both parties, I noted. Murphy's transaction violates fundamental partnership protections. Patricia reviewed my preliminary evidence and immediately recommended comprehensive documentation, preservation, and potential civil litigation to recover the unauthorized property sale proceeds. Harrison, you need to secure all evidence immediately and consider emergency court intervention to prevent Murphy from hiding or transferring the sale proceeds, Patricia advised. The real estate transaction records I obtained showed that Murphy had represented himself as having full authority to complete the property sale, making false statements to the title company about my consent and participation. Murphy provided fraudulent representations to real estate professionals about partnership authorization, I documented. His systematic deception enabled property theft through systematic misrepresentation. Murphy's confidence about the property sale authorization was about to encounter comprehensive evidence and legal enforcement that would expose every aspect of his fraudulent transaction while ensuring appropriate accountability. Have you ever discovered that someone exploited your family medical emergency to steal your most valuable business assets through systematic fraud? Partnership agreements require verification through comprehensive documentation, especially when significant property investments are involved. My 17-year journey in restaurant management had been built on the foundation of systematic partnership development and comprehensive property investment that transformed a small neighborhood eatery into one of Denver's most successful family dining establishments. Milano's restaurant represented years of careful location development, menu refinement, and customer relationship building that had created sustainable competitive advantages in the highly competitive restaurant industry. I had established Milano's restaurant in 2007 with Kevin Murphy, after we had both gained extensive experience managing restaurant operations for regional dining chains. My background in hospitality management and financial planning had provided the operational expertise necessary for sustainable restaurant development, while Murphy brought front-of-house experience and claimed expertise in customer service and marketing strategies. Harrison's systematic approach to restaurant operations and financial management provides the foundation for long-term success in the challenging restaurant industry, noted industry testimonial from Restaurant Association President Michael Sanders. The partnership structure we had created emphasized collaborative decision-making and shared responsibility for both operational management and strategic business development, with specific safeguards for major financial decisions and property investments. Our partnership agreement ensures that both partners participate in significant business decisions while maintaining individual areas of expertise and responsibility, I had explained during initial partnership negotiations. The Denver location we had selected represented a significant investment in prime restaurant real estate that required careful market analysis and long-term financial planning to justify the substantial property costs and renovation expenses. Milano's location provides optimal visibility and accessibility for family dining customers, while offering expansion potential for catering and special event services, I had documented during our initial property evaluation. The $450,000 property value reflected years of successful restaurant operations, neighborhood development, and real estate appreciation that had transformed our initial investment into substantial business equity. Kevin Murphy had initially been an effective partner who complemented my operational management skills with customer service expertise and front-of-house leadership that enhanced our restaurant's reputation and customer loyalty. Kevin's customer relationship skills and marketing initiatives helped establish Milano's as a preferred family dining destination, I had noted during early partnership reviews. But Murphy had gradually been expressing frustration with what he characterized as my conservative approach to business expansion and property investment decisions. Harrison, your systematic approach to decision-making constrains our growth potential, Murphy had complained during quarterly partnership meetings. We need more aggressive expansion strategies to capitalize on market opportunities. I had consistently explained that restaurant success required careful financial planning and systematic operational management rather than impulsive expansion or speculative property investments. Kevin, restaurant operations require consistent quality and financial stability, I would respond. Sustainable growth depends on proven systems and careful resource allocation rather than opportunistic expansion. But Murphy viewed my methodical approach as missed opportunities for rapid growth and increased profitability, rather than essential protection for our established business foundation. Conservative management limits our competitive positioning in the expanding Denver restaurant market, Murphy had argued. We need to be more proactive about capturing market share and property appreciation opportunities. The philosophical differences between Murphy and my approach had been manageable when we maintained collaborative decision-making protocols and shared responsibility for major business choices. But my mother's medical crisis had apparently provided Murphy with the opportunity he had been seeking to circumvent our partnership safeguards. The comprehensive business documentation I had maintained included detailed records of every property investment, partnership decision, and legal agreement that governed our restaurant operations and asset management. Our business records document every major decision and financial transaction to ensure partnership transparency and regulatory compliance I had established as fundamental business practice. The automated financial tracking systems I had implemented provided comprehensive audit trails for all revenue, expenses, and asset transactions that would expose any unauthorized financial activities. But Murphy had apparently been studying our property investment portfolio and monitoring real estate market conditions to identify opportunities for unauthorized asset disposition during my family emergency. The timing of his property sale transaction coincided precisely with my mother's final hospitalization, when he knew I would be unavailable to provide oversight or challenge his unauthorized decision-making. Murphy's property sale timing suggests systematic monitoring of my family medical situation to identify optimal opportunity for unauthorized transaction, I documented. His calculated approach indicates premeditated property theft rather than spontaneous business decision. The partnership agreement protections I had insisted upon during our initial business formation were proving essential for exposing Murphy's systematic violation of fiduciary duties and property ownership rights. Partnership safeguards were designed to prevent exactly the kind of unilateral asset disposition that Murphy attempted, I noted. His transaction violates every protective provision we established. The detailed property investment records I maintained would provide comprehensive evidence of Murphy's lack of authority to execute unilateral sale decisions, regardless of market conditions or timing pressures. Murphy's unauthorized property sale violates fundamental partnership law and contract obligations, I compiled. His systematic fraud creates clear grounds for civil litigation and potential criminal prosecution. The real estate professionals involved in Murphy's transaction had been systematically deceived about partnership authorization and consent requirements that should have prevented the unauthorized sale. Have you ever realized that comprehensive partnership documentation becomes essential protection when trusted partners exploit family emergencies to steal business assets? Systematic record-keeping sometimes becomes the only defense against sophisticated partnership fraud during vulnerable periods. The comprehensive investigation I conducted during my first week after discovering Murphy's unauthorized property sale revealed that his transaction wasn't an impulsive, opportunistic decision, but a carefully planned scheme to exploit my family medical crisis for systematic property theft, while I was providing end-of-life care for my terminally ill mother. My forensic analysis of business records and property sale documentation showed that Murphy had been systematically studying real estate market conditions and monitoring my mother's medical status to identify the optimal timing for unauthorized asset disposition. Murphy's property sale preparation began 3 months before the transaction, coinciding with my mother's cancer diagnosis and prognosis discussions, I documented. His systematic planning proves premeditated property theft rather than spontaneous market opportunity response. The sophistication of Murphy's scheme included coordination with real estate professionals who were systematically deceived about partnership authorization requirements and my consent to the property transaction. Murphy provided false representations to the title company, real estate agents, and legal professionals about my participation and authorization, I noted. His systematic deception enabled property theft through fraudulent documentation. But Murphy had made critical errors that would expose his systematic fraud and provide overwhelming evidence for civil litigation and potential criminal prosecution. The signature analysis conducted by forensic document specialists revealed that Murphy had forged my authorization on multiple sale documents using computer software and signature replication techniques. Murphy's forged signatures show consistent patterns of computer generation rather than authentic handwriting, forensic expert Dr. Jennifer Cole reported. The technical analysis proves systematic forgery rather than legitimate authorization. The business litigation attorney Patricia Thornton reviewed my expanded evidence compilation and immediately recognized the systematic nature of Murphy's fraud and the potential for criminal charges. Harrison, Murphy's activities show classic patterns of partnership exploitation and systematic property theft, Patricia observed. The documented evidence proves deliberate violation of fiduciary duties and fraudulent property disposition. The technical methods Murphy had used to facilitate his property theft included creating false partnership meeting minutes and fabricating emergency authorization documentation that would support his fraudulent transaction claims. Murphy created backdated partnership resolutions claiming emergency property sale authorization during family medical crisis, I documented. His systematic falsification of business records proves criminal intent rather than legitimate partnership decision-making. The real estate transaction timeline revealed that Murphy had been coordinating with potential buyers for weeks before my mother's final hospitalization, suggesting systematic preparation for unauthorized property disposition. Murphy's buyer communications began during my mother's initial hospitalization, I noted. His systematic coordination proves premeditated property theft timed to exploit family medical emergency. Most concerning was Murphy's systematic access to partnership financial accounts and legal documents that he had been exploiting to create fraudulent authorization for the unauthorized property sale. Murphy used legitimate partnership access to create false documentation supporting unauthorized property transaction, I documented. His exploitation of trusted business relationships enabled systematic asset theft. The security camera footage from the title company provided visual evidence that Murphy had been systematically misrepresenting partnership authorization and my consent to the property transaction. Title company security recordings show Murphy claiming verbal authorization and emergency partnership approval that never occurred, I compiled. His documented deception proves systematic fraud rather than legitimate business decision. Patricia recommended immediate civil litigation with emergency court intervention to prevent Murphy from hiding or transferring the fraudulent property sale proceeds. Harrison, we need emergency court orders to freeze the sale proceeds before Murphy realizes the scope of evidence against him, Patricia advised. His systematic fraud justifies immediate judicial intervention. The criminal implications were significant. Murphy's systematic forgery and fraudulent property disposition constituted multiple felony violations that could result in substantial prison time and complete asset forfeiture. Murphy's documented activities violate state fraud statutes, forgery laws, and partnership fiduciary duty obligations, Patricia explained. The systematic nature of his property theft supports enhanced criminal penalties. The evidence compilation I was providing included comprehensive documentation of Murphy's systematic deception, forged authorization, and fraudulent representations to real estate professionals. Murphy's own communications and transaction records prove systematic intent to commit property fraud, I noted. His documented deception eliminates most defense strategies. The partnership agreement violations were comprehensive and undeniable. Murphy had systematically breached every protective provision we had established for major asset decisions and property transactions. Murphy's unauthorized property sale violates explicit partnership contract provisions that require mutual consent for asset disposition, I documented. His systematic contract violations justify complete partnership dissolution and asset recovery. The real estate professionals who had facilitated Murphy's transaction were beginning to understand that they had been systematically deceived about partnership authorization and legal requirements. Title company and real estate agents are cooperating with investigation after discovering Murphy's misrepresentations, Patricia reported. Their cooperation provides additional evidence of Murphy's systematic fraud. The comprehensive evidence was revealing not just individual property theft, but systematic partnership exploitation that warranted maximum civil and criminal accountability. Murphy's documented activities constitute comprehensive partnership fraud that justifies emergency court intervention and criminal prosecution, Patricia observed. The systematic documentation I had maintained throughout our partnership was providing overwhelming evidence that would expose Murphy's property theft while ensuring complete asset recovery and appropriate legal accountability. Have you ever assembled evidence showing that a trusted partner systematically exploited your family medical emergency to steal business assets through elaborate fraud schemes? Sometimes comprehensive partnership documentation becomes essential for exposing sophisticated property theft, disguised as legitimate business decisions. The emergency legal strategy that Patricia Thornton developed required immediate court intervention to prevent Murphy from hiding or transferring the fraudulent property sale proceeds while building comprehensive civil and criminal cases that would ensure complete asset recovery and maximum accountability for his systematic property theft during my family medical crisis. Harrison, Murphy's systematic property fraud creates grounds for emergency court intervention under partnership law and criminal fraud statutes, Patricia explained during our strategic planning session. The comprehensive evidence you've compiled supports immediate asset freezing and potential criminal referral. The civil litigation strategy focused on Murphy's violations of fiduciary duty, partnership agreement breaches, and fraudulent property disposition that warranted complete asset recovery, plus enhanced damages for systematic deception. Your partnership agreement includes specific provisions that Murphy systematically violated through unauthorized property sale, Patricia noted. His documented fraud justifies partnership dissolution plus punitive damages for deliberate misconduct. But the most immediate priority was securing emergency court orders that would prevent Murphy from accessing or transferring the $450,000 property sale proceeds before he realized the scope of evidence against him. We need temporary restraining orders and asset freezing injunctions before Murphy discovers that his fraud has been exposed, Patricia recommended. The emergency court intervention must prevent additional asset hiding or destruction of evidence. The criminal referral documentation I was preparing included comprehensive evidence of Murphy's systematic forgery, fraudulent representations, and property theft that warranted prosecution under state fraud and theft statutes. Murphy's activities constitute multiple criminal violations, including forgery, fraud, theft, and violation of fiduciary duties, Patricia explained. The systematic nature of his property theft supports enhanced criminal penalties. Meanwhile, I was documenting additional evidence of Murphy's partnership exploitation while preparing comprehensive damage calculations that reflected both financial losses and professional disruption caused by his systematic fraud. Patricia, Murphy's property theft occurred during the most difficult period of my personal life while I was providing end-of-life care for my terminally ill mother, I noted. His exploitation of family medical crisis creates additional grounds for enhanced damages. The emotional impact of Murphy's betrayal was significant, but my focus remained on systematic evidence compilation and strategic legal response that would ensure complete accountability and asset recovery. Murphy's timing proves systematic exploitation of vulnerability rather than legitimate business decision-making, I documented. His calculated approach during family medical emergency justifies maximum legal consequences. The forensic document analysis that Dr. Jennifer Cole completed provided irrefutable evidence that Murphy had systematically forged my signatures on multiple property sale documents. The signature analysis eliminates any possibility that Murphy had legitimate authorization, Patricia noted. His systematic forgery proves criminal intent and eliminates most defense strategies. The title company security footage was particularly damaging evidence that showed Murphy systematically misrepresenting partnership authorization and fabricating consent that never existed. The video recordings prove Murphy's systematic deception of real estate professionals, I compiled. His documented lies eliminate claims about legitimate business emergency or partnership approval. The real estate transaction audit revealed that Murphy had been systematically coordinating the property sale for weeks, while publicly expressing concern about my mother's medical condition and offering support during the family crisis. Murphy's buyer communications occurred simultaneously with his expressions of sympathy about my mother's cancer treatment, I documented. His systematic deception during family tragedy proves calculated exploitation rather than business necessity. The emergency court hearing was scheduled within 72 hours of Patricia's filing, reflecting the court's recognition that systematic property fraud warranted immediate judicial intervention. Emergency court procedures are designed for exactly these situations where systematic fraud creates immediate asset protection needs, Patricia explained. The evidence package we presented to the court included forensic signature analysis, security camera footage, partnership agreement violations, and timeline documentation that proved Murphy's systematic property theft. Murphy's documented activities prove systematic violation of partnership agreements and fraudulent property disposition, our court filing stated. Emergency intervention is necessary to prevent additional asset hiding and ensure victim recovery. But Murphy's response to the emergency court proceedings revealed his recognition that the comprehensive evidence made defense impossible and that criminal prosecution was inevitable. Murphy has hired criminal defense attorneys rather than civil litigation counsel, Patricia observed. His legal strategy indicates understanding that he faces criminal charges rather than simple partnership disputes. The criminal defense team that Murphy assembled included specialists in white-collar fraud and property theft, proving his awareness that systematic forgery and fraudulent asset disposition carried serious criminal liability. Murphy's attorney selection proves he understands the criminal implications of his systematic property fraud, Patricia noted. The asset freezing orders that the court was considering would prevent Murphy from accessing the property sale proceeds while ensuring complete recovery for partnership asset theft. Emergency court intervention will secure all fraudulent proceeds while preserving evidence for criminal prosecution, Patricia explained. The comprehensive legal strategy was designed to provide immediate asset protection while building criminal accountability that would prevent Murphy from exploiting other business relationships through similar fraud schemes. Multiple legal approaches ensure both immediate asset recovery and long-term criminal consequences, Patricia observed. Murphy's confidence about unauthorized property sale proceeds was about to encounter emergency court intervention and systematic evidence that would expose every aspect of his fraud while ensuring maximum legal accountability. Have you ever required emergency court intervention to prevent a fraudulent partner from hiding stolen assets while building criminal cases for systematic property theft? Sometimes comprehensive evidence compilation enables immediate judicial protection while supporting long-term criminal accountability. The emergency court hearing that took place 3 days after our filing created immediate legal pressure on Murphy, while exposing the systematic nature of his property fraud to judicial scrutiny that would determine both asset recovery and potential criminal referral. Judge Michael Rodriguez reviewed the comprehensive evidence package and immediately recognized the severity of Murphy's partnership violations and fraudulent property disposition. Mr. Murphy's activities appear to constitute systematic fraud and forgery that warrant immediate court intervention, Judge Rodriguez stated after reviewing the forensic signature analysis and security camera evidence. The court will issue temporary restraining orders, freezing all property sale proceeds pending full investigation. Murphy's response to the emergency court proceedings revealed his growing panic as he realized that his systematic fraud had been comprehensively documented and would be impossible to defend through legitimate business justifications. Murphy's emergency legal motions show desperation about frozen assets and recognition that his property theft has been exposed, Patricia Thornton observed. His legal strategy indicates understanding that criminal prosecution is inevitable. The asset freezing orders immediately prevented Murphy from accessing the $450,000 property sale proceeds while securing additional personal assets that might be used to satisfy restitution obligations. Court orders have frozen Murphy's personal bank accounts, investment portfolios, and real estate holdings pending resolution of fraud charges, asset recovery specialist Robert Chen reported. The title company cooperation was providing additional evidence that Murphy had systematically deceived real estate professionals about partnership authorization and fabricated consent documentation. Title company recordings show Murphy claiming emergency partnership authority that never existed, title company president Linda Davis testified. His systematic misrepresentations enabled fraudulent property transaction. But the most damaging testimony came from forensic document expert, Dr. Jennifer Cole, who provided detailed analysis proving that Murphy had systematically forged my signatures using computer software and signature replication techniques. The defendant's signature forgeries show consistent computer generation patterns that eliminate any possibility of authentic authorization, Dr. Cole testified. His systematic falsification proves deliberate criminal intent. The timeline evidence was particularly convincing, showing that Murphy's property sale coordination coincided precisely with my mother's final hospitalization when he knew I would be unavailable to challenge his unauthorized activities. Murphy's transaction timeline proves systematic exploitation of family medical crisis, I testified. His calculated timing indicates premeditated property theft rather than legitimate business emergency. Judge Rodriguez's preliminary ruling included complete asset freezing, plus referral to the district attorney's office for criminal fraud prosecution. The evidence presented proves systematic violation of partnership agreements and fraudulent property disposition that warrants both civil recovery and criminal investigation, Judge Rodriguez ruled. Murphy's criminal exposure was expanding beyond simple property theft to include systematic forgery, fraud, and conspiracy charges that carried potential sentences exceeding 10 years in state prison. Murphy faces multiple felony charges, including forgery, fraud, theft, and violation of fiduciary duties, District Attorney Sarah Wilson explained. The systematic nature of his property theft supports enhanced criminal penalties. The criminal investigation was revealing that Murphy's fraud scheme had affected additional business relationships and property transactions that extended his criminal liability beyond our partnership dispute. Murphy's pattern of systematic fraud includes similar property manipulation in previous business relationships, Detective Thomas Martinez reported. But Murphy's attempts to negotiate plea agreements were complicated by the comprehensive evidence that made his criminal liability undeniable while eliminating most bargaining leverage. Murphy's documented fraud eliminates plea negotiation options, Prosecutor Wilson noted. His systematic property theft and forgery justify maximum criminal penalties. The civil asset recovery process was proceeding parallel to criminal prosecution, ensuring that partnership property theft would result in complete restitution plus enhanced damages for systematic fraud. Civil recovery will provide complete asset restoration plus punitive damages for Murphy's systematic partnership violations, Patricia explained. The restitution calculations were approaching $520,000 when enhanced damages and legal costs were included in the comprehensive asset recovery process. Murphy's systematic fraud created damages that exceed simple property theft, Patricia calculated. His exploitation of family medical crisis justifies enhanced penalties. Meanwhile, I was receiving support from other restaurant owners who had experienced similar partnership exploitation and were impressed by my systematic legal response to property fraud. Harrison's documentation and legal strategy provide a model for protecting restaurant partnerships from systematic asset theft, Restaurant Association President Michael Sanders noted. The professional recognition I was receiving through ethical crisis management exceeded the damage that Murphy's fraud had initially created for our restaurant operations. Webb's systematic approach to partnership protection demonstrates professional integrity that attracts industry support, industry analyst Patricia Newman observed. Murphy's systematic property theft was creating opportunities for enhanced business relationships and professional recognition that wouldn't have been possible without his fraudulent actions. Sometimes, systematic partnership betrayal creates catalysts for professional growth and industry leadership, I reflected during crisis management. The comprehensive legal victory was providing not just asset recovery, but validation of systematic partnership documentation and ethical business practices that attracted new opportunities. Have you ever seen systematic property fraud completely exposed through emergency court intervention that secured immediate asset recovery while building criminal accountability? Sometimes comprehensive documentation enables judicial protection that transforms attempted theft into enhanced professional recognition. The comprehensive resolution of Murphy's property fraud case occurred within 6 months of the emergency court intervention, delivering complete asset recovery, criminal accountability, and professional recognition that exceeded initial expectations, while establishing legal precedents for protecting restaurant partnerships from systematic property theft during family medical emergencies. Murphy's guilty plea on all criminal charges included systematic forgery, fraud, property theft, and violation of fiduciary duties that resulted in a 2-year state prison sentence, plus complete restitution of fraudulent property proceeds. Mr. Murphy's systematic exploitation of his partner's family medical crisis to steal partnership property represents a serious violation of business ethics and criminal law, Judge Patricia Stevens stated during sentencing. His calculated property theft during family tragedy warrants maximum punishment under state fraud statutes. The criminal conviction required Murphy to liquidate his personal residence, retirement accounts, and investment portfolios to satisfy court-ordered restitution that totaled $520,000, including the original property value plus enhanced damages. Murphy's asset forfeiture ensures complete victim recovery, plus penalties that reflect the systematic nature of his partnership fraud, asset recovery specialist Chen reported. The comprehensive restitution exceeds original property value due to enhanced damages for exploitation during family medical crisis. But beyond financial recovery, Murphy's prosecution created industry recognition of systematic partnership documentation as essential protection against property fraud and business exploitation during vulnerable periods. Webb's comprehensive partnership documentation provided the evidentiary foundation for the most successful restaurant fraud prosecution in state court history, Restaurant Association President Sanders noted. His systematic approach to business protection should be adopted by restaurant partnerships statewide. The professional opportunities that resulted from my ethical handling of Murphy's fraud exceeded anything our original partnership could have provided. Webb Family Dining, the new restaurant I established using recovered assets, was attracting customers who valued ethical business practices and systematic operational management that reflected proven integrity and professional competence. Harrison's exposure of systematic partnership fraud demonstrates exactly the kind of business integrity we need in family dining establishments, noted customer testimonial from longtime Milano's patron Dorothy Martinez. The restaurant operation was generating annual revenue of $380,000 while providing professional satisfaction that focused on customer service excellence rather than partnership management and fraud prevention. Independent restaurant ownership allows complete control over operational standards and business ethics, I reflected during industry presentations. The former Milano's customers who followed me to Webb Family Dining represented validation that my operational expertise and ethical standards created more value than Murphy's cost-cutting schemes and fraudulent business practices. Harrison's systematic approach to restaurant management and ethical business practices provide reliability and quality that justify premium dining experiences, explained customer retention metrics showing 85% of regular Milano's patrons transitioning to the new location. The speaking opportunities at restaurant management conferences and business ethics seminars were generating additional revenue while establishing my reputation as an expert in partnership, fraud prevention, and systematic business documentation. Webb's experience demonstrates how comprehensive documentation systems can expose and prevent systematic business fraud, observed conference organizer David Kim. The Restaurant Association had implemented enhanced partnership oversight recommendations based on Murphy's fraud case, creating industry standards for preventing systematic property theft in restaurant businesses. Webb's documentation protocols have become model practices for restaurant partnerships seeking to prevent property fraud and ensure business asset protection, Association Compliance Director Jennifer Adams noted. Murphy's complete professional destruction served as industry-wide warning about the consequences of systematic partnership fraud and the importance of ethical business relationships during challenging personal circumstances. The Murphy prosecution sends clear messages throughout the restaurant industry about criminal consequences for partnership property theft, legal analyst Robert Wilson observed. But the most meaningful outcome was validation of ethical business practices and systematic documentation as reliable protection against partnership exploitation during family medical emergencies. Murphy's prosecution proves that comprehensive business documentation and ethical partnership management create sustainable competitive advantages, I observed during ethics workshops. The restaurant industry recognition I received for fraud exposure and systematic legal response had generated referrals and consultation opportunities that exceeded the financial benefits of traditional partnership arrangements. Webb's ethical handling of partnership fraud demonstrates business integrity that attracts both customers and industry collaboration opportunities, industry consultant Sarah Davis noted. The expanded catering services I had developed using recovered assets were providing additional revenue streams and professional opportunities that reflected enhanced business capabilities. Webb Family Dining's systematic approach to catering and event services provides comprehensive restaurant capabilities that exceed traditional dining establishment offerings, catering client testimonial showed. The comprehensive legal victory had demonstrated that systematic partnership documentation and ethical business practices provided more reliable asset protection than informal business relationships based on convenience rather than legal safeguards. Professional competence in systematic documentation creates business security that transcends individual partnership arrangements, I noted during business protection seminars. Murphy's systematic property theft during my family medical crisis had inadvertently created opportunities for enhanced restaurant independence, professional recognition, and meaningful business relationships that exceeded anything our original partnership could have achieved. Sometimes the most systematic business betrayal creates catalysts for independent success and enhanced ethical standards, I reflected during professional development workshops. The documentation methods that had exposed Murphy's property fraud were being adopted by restaurant partnerships, while generating ongoing consultation revenue and industry leadership recognition. Webb's partnership protection protocols provide comprehensive asset security while supporting legitimate restaurant operations, noted licensing agreement with State Restaurant Association. Murphy's attempt to exploit my mother's final illness for systematic property theft had ultimately created opportunities for enhanced business independence, professional leadership, and meaningful restaurant operations that exceeded anything traditional partnership arrangements could have provided. Have you ever discovered that systematic documentation and ethical business practices could transform attempted property fraud into opportunities for enhanced professional success and industry recognition? Sometimes comprehensive partnership protection becomes the foundation for business independence that exceeds traditional partnership benefits. Standing in the expanded Webb Family Dining facility 18 months after Murphy's conviction and imprisonment, I reflected on how his systematic property theft during my mother's final illness had inadvertently transformed my career from partnership management to industry leadership in restaurant ethics and business protection. The restaurant had grown to generate $485,000 in annual revenue, while serving customers who valued proven integrity and comprehensive operational excellence above traditional dining establishment marketing approaches. The 200-square-foot facility accommodated 120 dining seats, plus comprehensive catering capabilities and private event services that had become my business specialty through systematic customer relationship development and quality service delivery. Working with a restaurant owner who prioritizes systematic documentation and ethical business practices provides security and trust that creates exceptional dining experiences, noted Senior Manager Patricia Lynch. The restaurant operation I had established was generating substantially higher income than my original partnership arrangement, while providing professional satisfaction that focused on customer service excellence and community relationships rather than fraud prevention and partnership disputes. Webb Family Dining's systematic approach to restaurant management and ethical business practices provides comprehensive service quality that exceeds traditional dining establishment standards. Customer testimonial from regular patron Michael Torres noted, "The business ownership independence that had resulted from Murphy's prosecution, combined with industry recognition for fraud exposure, had created professional opportunities that exceeded anything achievable through traditional partnership arrangements." Harrison's transformation from fraud victim to industry ethics leader demonstrates how systematic integrity and comprehensive documentation create lasting competitive advantages, Restaurant Business Management Quarterly observed. But the most significant achievement was industry recognition that established me as the definitive expert in restaurant partnership fraud prevention and systematic business documentation for family dining establishments. Webb's experience provides unique insights into preventing and detecting business fraud that threatens both restaurant operations and industry integrity, Restaurant Ethics Review noted. The State Restaurant Association had requested my participation in developing enhanced partnership standards and fraud prevention protocols that would protect restaurant businesses from systematic property theft and partnership exploitation. Webb's documentation methods and fraud detection expertise provide essential guidance for strengthening restaurant business oversight, Association Ethics Committee Chair Robert Sanders explained. Annual speaking engagements at restaurant conferences, business protection seminars, and professional ethics workshops were generating supplemental income of $95,000 while reinforcing my expertise in systematic documentation and ethical business management. Webb's systematic approach to partnership documentation and fraud prevention has become the industry standard for restaurant business protection, Southwest Restaurant Alliance President Jennifer Adams observed. Murphy's 2-year state prison sentence had concluded with complete asset forfeiture, permanent exclusion from restaurant industry employment, and ongoing restitution obligations that would continue throughout his parole period. Murphy's systematic property fraud resulted in the most comprehensive restaurant partnership prosecution in state court history, Prosecutor Wilson noted. His case demonstrates that business theft during family medical emergencies carries severe criminal consequences that cannot be avoided through sophisticated documentation manipulation. But Murphy's prosecution had also created enhanced protection for restaurant industry business integrity by establishing legal precedents that strengthened partnership fraud enforcement and professional oversight capabilities. The Murphy prosecution clarified criminal enforcement capabilities for systematic business fraud and established deterrent effects throughout the restaurant industry, legal analyst David Martinez observed. The business documentation methodologies I had developed and refined through Murphy's fraud exposure were generating licensing revenue from restaurant businesses who needed proven protection frameworks while ensuring proper implementation and ethical oversight. Webb's business protection protocols provide comprehensive security against partnership fraud while supporting legitimate restaurant operations and optimal customer service, noted licensing agreement with Regional Restaurant Business Network. The professional reputation I had built through ethical crisis management was attracting strategic consultation opportunities with major restaurant organizations who valued demonstrated integrity and systematic business protection expertise. Webb Family Dining's proven ethical standards and comprehensive documentation capabilities make them ideal consultants for complex business protection initiatives and fraud prevention programs, explained consulting agreement with Denver-based restaurant consortium. Looking back on Murphy's systematic betrayal and attempted exploitation of my mother's final illness, I realized that his sophisticated property fraud had inadvertently created opportunities for professional growth, industry leadership, and restaurant business success that exceeded anything traditional partnership arrangements could have provided. Sometimes the most comprehensive business fraud becomes the catalyst for professional development and industry recognition that transforms entire career trajectories, I observed during restaurant leadership conferences. The systematic documentation that had exposed Murphy's property violations was serving as the foundation for expanded consultation services that helped other restaurant professionals prevent business fraud while maintaining ethical operational standards. Murphy's fraud attempt validated the commercial value of systematic business protection while creating legal precedents that enhanced industry-wide fraud prevention, I noted during professional development workshops. The comprehensive legal victory had demonstrated that systematic documentation and ethical business practices provided more reliable operational security than partnership relationships based on convenience rather than shared professional standards. Professional competence in systematic business protection and ethical restaurant management creates sustainable competitive advantages that transcend individual partnership arrangements or operational management strategies, I explained during ethics presentations. Murphy's attempt to exploit my mother's medical crisis through systematic property fraud had ultimately strengthened my professional position while creating consultation opportunities and industry recognition that established Webb Family Dining as Colorado's leading advocate for ethical restaurant business and comprehensive operational documentation. The people who attempt to exploit others' family medical emergencies through systematic business fraud sometimes end up creating opportunities for their victims to achieve greater success through validated expertise and comprehensive ethical standards, I reflected during industry leadership seminars. The experience had proven that professional competence in systematic documentation and ethical business practices could transform attempted property fraud into enhanced restaurant success and industry authority that exceeded original partnership compensation arrangements. Murphy's systematic property theft had inadvertently provided the foundation for building industry leadership, professional recognition, and restaurant business expansion that represented the most successful and meaningful period in my 17-year restaurant career. Professional relationships built on systematic integrity and ethical standards prove more durable and valuable than partnerships based on convenient arrangements or business strategies that can be compromised through fraudulent activities. The restaurant business that had emerged from Murphy's attempted fraud was generating higher revenue, enhanced industry recognition, and more meaningful customer relationships than anything traditional partnership arrangements could have achieved. Have you discovered that systematic documentation and ethical business practices can transform attempted property fraud into opportunities for professional growth and industry leadership? Sometimes the most sophisticated partnership fraud becomes the foundation for building enhanced competitive advantages through validated integrity and comprehensive operational excellence. If this story of systematic documentation and business ethics resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button to Revenge Tales with Luke. Share your experiences with partnership fraud and business protection in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's facing similar challenges with systematic property theft and partnership exploitation. See you in our next story.